Welcome along or welcome back to the Dads in Business podcast, where we aim to help bring busy working dads bring the best of themselves to work and to home. And today's conversation focuses around both aspects. I'm delighted that I'm talking to a tech entrepreneur, a tech startup business owner and founder, and also someone that is there to help and support parents in what it is that they do. I know when I first became a dad, I spent so much of my time, and probably still do now, winging it. Not really know what to do, where to turn, who to talk to, and found it to be quite a lonely place. I think part of that was because I didn't know where to look. And I think, as we explore today's conversation, Charlie Rosier on my left on my screen is going to help talk us through that. So, Charlie, thank you for joining us today. Please do take this time to introduce yourself. What is Babu, and how you help busy working parents?
Thank you so much for having me, Rob. A pleasure to be here. So yes, I am Charlie. I am one of the co-founders and CEO of Baboo. And everything you just said completely resonates with me. I mean, Baboo was formed from my own lived experiences of becoming a parent 7 years ago, which that time has really flown by. And and finding, lack of support, complete overwhelm of juggling work and life, but also, my family are pretty spread out. My mum now lives in France. Like, just it was hard, and it still is hard, to be honest. But the other thing that doesn't help is the kind of misinformation that's out there. So, you can spend hours on Google kind of going down a rabbit hole, and I feel like sometimes the algorithm feeds your anxiety. So Baboo was really created to tackle those two things. One, a single source of truth for parents, and provide kind of tailored content week to week, so only giving you the stuff you need to know, and not making you worry about stuff that really isn't a problem or shouldn't be thinking about right now. And then the community element, so bringing in support and building that kind of village, if you like.
Yeah. So you assumingly left corporate world, professional world. How was that transition from? Were you employed before, or is Babu a new project working for yourself? What was your journey into building Babu?
I didn't leave a nice cushy job in corporate. Baboo came I spun out of my previous business, which was a nursery business. So when I first had my daughter and I wanted to go back to work, I really couldn't find childcare that worked for me, that was flexible and affordable ultimately. And so dove headfirst in and opened a completely flexible pay-as-you-go nursery with a co-working space on site to allow parents to be next to their children, to be able to be there for those first steps, those milestones, but also be able to get some time to themselves to work, or be around other like-minded parents. So and then obviously the pandemic came and it changed the nature of the business, and we moved to an online provision, and then Baboo has kind of grown from there. But for my sins, this is my fourth startup, so having a steady paycheck and a big team seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah. Oh my goodness me. Your fourth tech startup as well, or my goodness me. So
Not tech, my first.
yeah, my
We're more
goodness.
real estate and hospitality.
You're a serial entrepreneur, I guess, in that case. And credit to you for going again and going again. I think there's lessons to be had there. I think some people let the negative beat them down, don't they? And I was talking to someone recently on another podcast where I was a guest about resilience. I mean, you must have got a lot of lessons, lived experiences as a business owner, building up your resilience. I mean, what would you say to those that are struggling to find that opportunity?
Um, it's a really interesting one. So on the topic of resilience and kind of self-confidence, which I think are probably two of the key attributes you need to have to be an entrepreneur, I fortunately have them in abundance, probably misplaced sometimes. Um, But over the course of Baboo's journey, we've really looked um, at the mental health crisis, both within adults and within children, and now really young children. And I think some of those things like self-esteem, self-confidence, resilience are what are lacking. And so, yeah, I feel very fortunate that I had a childhood that built all those kind of strengths in me, if you like, and have allowed me to take risks with my career. And don't get me wrong, I've definitely made loads of mistakes. And sometimes I think, what the hell am I doing? And, I look around at peers my age who, work for banks or are lawyers and have far more to show for their last 15 years in work. But other times I'm very grateful for the fact that, I enjoy pretty good mental health and I am resilient, and that carries not over in just failures in business, but also in life. The hardships that come to you, whoever you are. So, losing a parent or going through divorce and those things. So, yeah, I think resilience is something that you need, but I think we all need it, right? Because life is tough, and you need to be able to navigate those harder times.
No,
That was
absolutely. And
well.
I like your attitude or mention there to fear of failure. I think a lot of people don't do things because they're afraid of it not succeeding, right? And I think, you referenced, oh, my friends have done way more than I have in a professional sense or whatever, but I would argue that having gone round about 4 times on your business journey, you're achieving far more than they are in terms of who they are. Because you identify so much about yourself, don't you? And explore who you are when you're working for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's a real expression of yourself, and it is a privilege to be able to do it. Um, but yeah, I think I lost a hospitality business during COVID, and at the time it felt absolutely crippling. It felt like my life was over. I mean, I had my first and hopefully last panic attack. But I think when you've gone through that failure, the way that you view things and the way you view yourself and the way you view business is so very, very different. So yeah, I think you have to be able to put yourself out there in order to learn, but it can be really scary.
It can indeed, and it can be quite lonely as well, which is why part of the reason I started the Dads in Business project was to try and talk to people like yourself and others who could share those experiences. Because I think as soon as you give that permission or that space, people want to hear the stories. They want to hear and see the scars and the wounds that people have gone through to get there, because it might just inspire them on. If all we see is success stories, it almost seems unrealistic and not achievable, I think. So thanks for going off on a bit of a curveball early on there. I appreciate that. In terms of running a tech startup, Charlie, in the UK, what's it like? How is the tech industry in the UK, and how have you found it?
Oh, big question. So a few things. First of all, I'm a non-technical co-founder. I think that comes with its own challenges. I really, for a long time, and there's still things I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm quite okay to say that. The key thing for me was surrounding myself with people who do know what they're talking about and can be that kind of middleman, if you like, to kind of break it down and explain it to me in simple language. But in terms of the kind of general tech environment and the startup ecosystem, if you like, I think it's great. I think, I've been in a lot of accelerators. I'm connected with a lot of founders at similar or earlier or slightly later stages. And there's such a great community spirit amongst them. A lot of people are willing to share lessons, to share investors, to help connect dots, or just be a sounding board when you need to vent about how rubbish your day was. So I think it's a great community to be part of. But like with all businesses at the moment, I don't think anyone is exempt from the challenges of the economic environment. Funding has been really difficult for a lot of companies. I was just on a call this morning just saying, like, I don't think any company can be too big to fail right now. The Body Shop's just gone into administration, which is like a household name for as long as I can remember. And yes, of course, they're a high street business and there's reasons for it, but there are lots of big businesses which are struggling. So yeah, it's great, but it's tough. Does that answer your question?
Well, it does. I think there's a lot of perceptions around, oh, if you're in a tech startup, you must be minted. And I think there's some probably huge challenges around there. I mean, what were when you were moving into it from a non-tech background, which you alluded to there, what were the challenges getting started? And what are the challenges you see sustaining the growth in the UK as a tech hub? Is it a good place to be a tech business, do you feel?
Yeah, I think so. I was reading an article the other day that says we're still kind of leading the way in terms of Europe, for number of startups, the highest funding levels, etc. I think London itself is, I mean, and they're trying to help the regions grow as well, but London itself is great to be a tech startup. The mayor's very much behind it. There's lots of tax incentives to help investors, etc. For me, the hardest bits were, and I'm still learning, but I think I've kind of come to the end of hopefully the hardest learning bit has been just building a tech platform. I mean, if you take the tech bit out of a business, the business bit I understand, right? I've done it 4 times before. I understand growth marketing, recruitment, whatever. The tech piece has been hard for me to understand, understanding who should build it, how much it should cost, what features are mission critical, what are nice to haves, what different integrations, what's our tech stack, are we, this or that. So I think that's taken the longest time to navigate that, and I've definitely made mistakes on the way, but I think finally I've come to clarity on the way forward, and hopefully that time spent has not been wasted. It's not, we've been doing other things during that time as well. So um
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you think connecting to your purpose of your own journey into being a parent, thinking, oh my God, this is hard, there's no one to talk to, has that helped you stay on the path to this is going to work, I'm going to navigate this and learn this, whereas others might have easily gone away? I guess the question being, is it important to stick to your purpose or know your purpose before heading out into setting something up?
I think definitely having a purpose that you genuinely believe in, right, isn't just purpose for purpose sake,
Yeah.
makes a massive difference, right? It makes the hardship worth it, because in our instance, we're about democratizing access to education and support, and firmly believe that by investing in the first 5 years of a child's life, you can have a transformational impact on society in terms of issues down the line, in terms of mental health, unemployment, addiction, suicide, all those things. So it's very personal, and I'm very passionate about it, and it definitely helps. Looking back at my other businesses, especially my earlier ones, my very first business was in the world of real estate investment, and I was living in Hong Kong, and I didn't have a personal affinity to that business at all. And so, yeah, I definitely was probably more lapsadaisical, if that's the word, about it then. Whereas now yeah, it's very easy for me to wake up every day and remind myself why I'm doing this and what I need
Mm.
to do to get there.
So it's not just connecting to a revenue goal, it's connecting to a purpose and a reason for it
Yeah,
existing that
yeah,
wouldn't happen if it wasn't for you driving it. I think it's important to connect back to that sometimes, I think, because we see, I'm sure you do as well, see business owners and they're bored, they run ragged, they're just busy, they're just in a trap of working endless hours for no real reason or gain. And I just think you just want to snap them out of it sometimes. Just think, why are you doing it? Why are you doing what you're doing? If you hate it, you end up resenting this thing. Like you said with the property business, I wasn't really that bothered. I think we have
no.
to connect back to it somewhere. So yeah, I was just interested around your perspective on that. Um, Now, obviously, the tech side of things, Charlie, it helps scale. I guess that's one of the buzzwords I see all the time when I'm listening podcasts or videos. It's always about scale. It always seems to be you're not successful until you've scaled, or that's the opportunity to be. And I think there's a risk that it becomes a bit impersonal in that way, because you're just one of a number. You're just a digit. You're a customer. You're a user. How are you going to make sure that Baboo sustains that level of personability with its users? So whether it's one dad in this context or 10,000 or however many, they all get that personal experience, because I'm sure I'd engage with it wholly more if it felt like it was just for me. Like we shop on Amazon because it's just for me, even though there's billions of people shopping on there. So how are you finding that balance between the scale and keeping it personal?
So the way that our technology has been designed is to make it hyper personal, and we're kind of here, and I want us to be here. There is so much you can do with technology to create that personalization. um for example, without it being creepy, like I'd love it to know where you were in the UK, say, and what the weather was going to be like. And if it was a rainy day, it would promote indoor activities, or actually maybe it promoted an activity that was about splashing in puddles, to that level of being like, and our tagline is your wing parent, right? It's meant to be like, we're here, we're holding a hand, we've got you, we're here for the journey. And so yeah, the aim is it for to feel personalized. I think there's a crucial point here in that, like, community is really hard en masse, right? I don't want our community element to be like a parenting forum where there's a million trolls in there just saying negative stuff for the sake of it, or loads of people chipping in with some advice which is completely incorrect, and unhelpful. um so that bit we've worked really, really hard to think, what do parents need? They need community, they need someone to be able to speak to and connect with, but they don't need it to be in a very big open space, I think. um and so the way that we're tackling that piece is actually more on a kind of one-to-one level. So matching you with a buddy, if you like, who is similar to you in parenting approach or age or geography or age of child or whatever, and building your village like that, rather than spray and pray.
Yeah, I think that sounds really. So it's almost like, to use a dating app analogy, it's almost like that. It's like, I'm going to sign up to this, and I've been buddied up with a person based on these 10 questions, as an example, because male loneliness is an
Exactly.
issue. So I guess if that's helping me overcome the loneliness issue, that sounds really interesting. Could you just unpack that a bit more?
Sure. So yeah, we are speaking to some founders of dating apps to understand how they built their algorithm, their matching algorithm, to and looking at it quite similar, and potentially using AI to really enhance that kind of matching process. We There is a lot of research out there already which has done buddies. So for example, there was one done in neonatal care units here in the UK, where they matched parents with very young or premature or sick children, and saw fantastic results in terms of the reduction in stress, anxiety, and loneliness. We've run our own tests as well, where we very basically matched two parents that did not know each other via WhatsApp and just said, see what happens. Be
Wow.
kind to each other, don't throw any shade, don't judge the other person. um and again, we saw really positive responses from that. About 70% of them said they felt more supported, less judged, and able to talk to that person because they were a stranger, whereas they couldn't necessarily say the same things to their partner, their family, or perhaps even an expert. So yeah, I think it's going to be an integral part of the business, and in our mission to kind of revolutionize parenting, because I think loneliness is a very big part of it. And especially, I don't know if this you believe this, but I think dads in particular are less connected maybe than mums. So the mums obviously, for the most part, have their maternity leave, and they go to the stay and play classes, or they stay in touch with their NCT friends or whatever it may be, and they kind of build that support network, whereas the dads don't seem to have it quite so much.
Yeah, yeah, and there is some researchers, I'm sure you're aware, that I think is it 1 in 5 dads claim to have no close friends or anyone they can call. Male suicide is 3 times more prevalent than women. So there's obviously some issue there. There is a loneliness problem. And some of the work we've done with employers before, where we run just straw polls, nothing too scientific, but we'll run a poll with 30 or 50 people who are on the call. And we'll ask them, do you know of spaces you can go to? No, but I want to. So there is
Mm.
a desire for men to engage in a space, but I think they want to from a practical sense, they want to be able to get something out of it. It's like, okay, what am I doing this
Mm.
for? What's the point? If not, it just falls into the well-being trap. And I don't need well-being. I need a connection, a genuine
Actionable
connection.
insight. Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
think
I think,
there's, sorry, go on.
no, go.
No, I was just going to say, I think that as a working dad, not just myself, but this is the commonality that I found across the work that we're doing at Dads in Business is dads go to work and talk about work stuff, and they'll go to the social with their mates to talk about social stuff. And there's never that space, or there wasn't that space where they can say, do you know what? I'm struggling with getting my kid to sleep at night. What can I do about it? Do you know what? I'm struggling with getting home from work and I just wish they'd go to bed. I'm struggling because I've got the guilt where I've missed bedtime again. What do you do about it? And
Mm.
there's not that space, which it sounds like you're helping overcome. And I think that real connection, where it is a stranger in a way, it starts off as a stranger connection. A
Yeah.
huge part of what we've noticed, and again, I'd be interested in your feedback on this, is almost just a permission. It's like, look, we've created this space. It's okay to go and engage it, and people leap at it. Then they're almost not going to self. They're also going to self-select themselves. But when they say, "Here it is, it's for you," they'll walk into it. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Is that
Yeah,
something
it
that
does.
you're
And I
seeing?
really like the kind of word permission, because I do feel, uh, and for dads in particular, that they don't feel able to parent out loud quite the same way that mums do, right? And I really like your piece around, at work you talk about work, and in the pub you talk about in the pub or wherever, the football. But where do they go to talk about being a parent other than with their partner? So yeah, I mean, we're not the only ones tackling this. There are some other great organizations out there that are just for dads. I saw on LinkedIn the other day that someone had just put a sign up in a coffee shop just being like, hey, I'm a dad and I need some friends to like meet back here at whatever. And like 25 other dads came down like at the arranged meeting time. So I think there's definitely a need to build more communities, safe spaces for dads and their kids. And as you say, kind of give them actionable insights, like practical tips, not just, take some time. It's
Yeah.
okay. It needs to be like, how do I deal with this? And honestly, some of the stories I hear from parents are like, spend years or months like trying to resolve an issue on their own, and because they just couldn't find anywhere that would give them a very straightforward answer of how to deal with that particular parenting issue.
Mm.
And as soon as they get it, like, oh my god, I wish I had that. Wish I
Mm.
had that time ago.
Yeah, there is that whole thing of what can I actually do about it? I want to be able to fix things. If we're assuming the male role and the stereotypes, we like to fix stuff and we like to practically do things. If it becomes like I say, an intangible well-being, or just like you say, just take time. It's like, well, no, I'll take time doing stuff, but let me figure it out. I need to know what I need to do. And I guess one of my questions around that Charlie was the engagement from dads and moms. Are you finding it easier to get to moms, or vice versa, or dads doing it in secret? I mean, what's the mix currently about your engagement?
It's been it's been pretty balanced, I'd say. It's not 50-50 kind of users. But we did a podcast series about called Revealing Fatherhood, where and I did a post on LinkedIn and just said, hey dads, does anyone want to talk to you about their journey? And honestly, inundated. I think we had like 35 different dads from around the world tell us their stories. I did the same thing for mums and found it much harder to recruit the mums for the podcast. Maybe that's because they are too busy actually juggling parenting and working and everything in between. Maybe they feel that their story isn't worthy of being listened to. But I guess my main point is that I definitely feel there is a movement of um, dads to want to be more engaged in with their children and in childcare and everything else. And I think part of that's obviously to do with the pandemic and the time they've spent at home and with their children. Part of it, I think, is a generational shift of wanting to be better than their dads. But yeah, we also did some research with the University of Plymouth looking at working dads in particular. And there was an overwhelming theme that was like, if dads aren't looked after by their companies, they will also look for another job. It's not just a working mum issue. It's dads too want flexibility, better parental leave policies, more support, more benefits, etc. So we're very much, trying to be inclusive of dads,
Mm.
and their desire to be more involved.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned about the support and the employee power, if you like. I mean, obviously, I've worked for myself for 7 years now, so I had to look back at some secondary research. But when I first started the Dads in Business project, I found that I think it was the Fatherhood Institute did some research, just 2019, just pre-COVID, suggesting that 80% of working men are parents, but 75% say there's less support for them than there are moms in the workplace. So there's a clear gap. And I think that's becoming apparent where you put call out and you get 35 people saying, yes, I want to talk about my story. It's almost been an unspoken thing for so long that I think there's been a pent up energy. And in the equality space, I think it can become quite easy to dismiss men and dads as you're okay. You're
Mm.
fine, you lot. There's something else we need to address first. And I don't know what your perspective or take is on it, Charlie, but I don't see how we can have a fully equal workplace unless we say to dads, what do you want as well? Because if not, there's a risk perhaps that we're going to keep poking dads in a corner and they're going to say, do you know what? I'm going to hold on to everything I've ever had and I'm not going to share any of it. So therefore we can't have the equality. Is that what you're seeing playing out from the research or conversations you had around your time in Plymouth?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, I speak to a lot of companies about how they're supporting working parents, and, a lot of them are doing great work to enhance their parental leave, predominantly in favor of better maternity leave. Um, and some of them will have phenomenal maternity leave. And then I ask about paternity leave, and it's statutory 2 weeks. So I do feel that there is this, when this perception, I guess, when you talk about working parents, what you mean is working mums. However, I do caveat this with, I've also done a lot of events with DEI professionals, and they're a big part of kind of the part we're talking to from our perspective. And they have, so many different groups within an organization, all with different needs, and sadly they have a budget. And so, for example, when I was speaking to the head of DEI for the NHS, he was talking about, the the pay gap for women of color. They've got their gender pay gap, and then they've got, the women of color pay gap, if you like. And it is so vast that he's like, we have to focus on that. We know that perhaps, to your point, dads might need some attention and they might need some support and everything else, but we have this group over here who are so much worse off that we have to improve the lives and experience of those individuals. And I think his view was very much that if we do good for one, we are actually doing good for everyone in the business. So, I think dads are probably in some instances being overlooked, but I'm sure they'll get their time.
Mm, I hope so, and absolutely, budgets are squeezed everywhere, aren't they? It's not a case of, oh, look at me, we need help too. But I think there's definitely just again, it probably goes back to that permission. It's okay to have a space. It's okay to do this. It's okay to do something. An awareness piece might help rather than a proactive, investment of huge sums or huge funds. Just we see you. It's all right. We've got you. There's
The
some
other, the
permission.
other bit that's the shame of it, though, is that, there is a lot of data that says by supporting working dads, you're doing a hell of a lot for working mums, right? You are hopefully moving the gender equality piece
Mm,
at home and at work. If you take more time off, it allows them to go back to work, etc. So I think it is a miss of companies not to actively be supporting working dads right now. But I think at the end of the day, it comes back to priorities within each individual business and budget.
mm. No, absolutely. It's a much bigger conversation than we're certainly going to resolve here. I think it's yeah, always interesting to hear other people's perceptions of that. And just as we head towards a sort of, I guess, practical, what can we do about things? stage. I saw a great post of yours the other day, which I think was celebrating the fact that you were top 5 tech startup of 50. I think that's what I saw. You'll tell me way better than I've just explained. But within that, there was 5 ways Baboo helps you be a better parent or a better person. And I just love to unpack that a little bit because it's what leapt at me. And I thought, oh, that'd be really nice to share, to show dads what they can actually do. So tell us about the accolade of the top 50 startup.
You're so funny because now I'm like, what on earth did I write? So
Yeah.
there's an award for a list essentially, the top 50 most innovative. It's quite niche, innovative education tech businesses in the UK, and we placed at number 5, which was a massive achievement for us because our team is tiny, and well, that's the main point really. Our team is very, very small, and we were up there with some businesses that have got a lot more funding and have much bigger teams and have been around a lot longer. So that was really great. And back to the earlier discussion about it being hard and lonely and everything else as a startup, like you have to take the time to celebrate these small wins because they're kind of what give you energy for the next, fire that you've got to put out.
Mm.
And then you're sharing my post. And then
There it is.
the top 5 benefits of Baboo I put in there. So less stress from 15 minutes a day. So what I was mentioning earlier, it's about, everything's tailored to you. You don't need to spend hours and hours scrolling and pulling your hair out, wondering what's wrong with your child or, why they can't go to sleep or anything else. So tailored information, 15 minutes on the app every day, don't need to be endlessly scrolling. All adds up to being less stressed and overwhelmed. Boost your confidence because we tell you what's going on with your child week to week and what to expect next. You should feel completely in control of it and therefore, by nature, be more confident. Better relationships. All of the content in the platform is around building a better bond with your baby, but also having a better relationship with yourself, being kinder to yourself, and having better relationships at work. So giving you the tools and resources to be able to speak up, to the point earlier about dads having the space, fighting for flexible work, fighting for better pay, communicating your needs in the workplace, raising happy, healthy children. So the content for you and your child is all about how do you instill those that emotional toolkit from birth. So I talked about resilience earlier, self-confidence, self-esteem, independence, empathy. How do you set them up to be mentally strong later in life and prioritize family well-being? So a lot of the activity suggestions are around stuff you can do together as a family, and understanding that your journey is not easy and that you also need to take time to prioritize yourself and your own well-being because you can't pour from an empty cup. So that whole thing about put your oxygen mask on before your kids, like it's all about you need to be in a fit and healthy frame and state of mind in order to really give your children what they need. So look after yourself as much as them.
Brilliant. And congratulations again for getting in the top 50. I can imagine that's an incredibly competitive space. So hats off to you and well done to the team as well. It's incredible. Charlie, what's the future for Baboo? What's the ambition? Tell us about that before we wrap up.
The ambition is a tricky one. No, it's not. Obviously, back to that purpose point. So I want Baboo to actually do good. So it needs to have a meaningful and beneficial impact on the families and the lives of those families. I obviously want it to be a scalable business, back to your earlier question. So, right now we have users in the US, we have them scattered across Europe, but really want to see us, embedded as part of the parent's journey in the first 5 years. So, it is ultimately, it'd be a dream if it was kind of given to you. You go and have your first scan at 12 weeks and they're like, here you go, here's Baboo. It's everything you need to know for the next 5 years, and it's going to hold your hand and make everything okay.
Well, it'll get there. They do give you those packs of things, don't they? And 90% of the stuff in there is rubbish. So I'd rather have
It's
something that I could
rubbish,
use.
put it in the bin. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Take out the napkins
exactly.
and the rest goes in the bin.
Exactly. I always remember when I we went to our first antenatal class and they tried to show me how to breastfeed. And I was thinking, well, that's pointless. I'm leaving. And we didn't go back for our second day because it was just silly. That was just nonsense. Whereas if someone gave me a practical, what can I do? How can I prepare resource? It'd be infinitely better. Infinitely better.
And it also spoke to you as a dad, right? Like, yes,
Yeah.
we get it. You're not pregnant, but these are the things you can do to support your partner. These are the practical things you can do to get ready. You know, this is what you need to know for the first month of the baby's life, etc. That's what people need, I think.
It absolutely is. Absolutely is, which is why I was so excited to talk to you today and hopefully spread the word of that a little bit. So listen, Charlie, how can we stay in touch, see your journey, connect with you as a business owner, but also see the Baboo journey? Where can we find out about you and your work?
Absolutely. Well, obviously, you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, Charlie Rosier, or on email, charlie@baboo, which is babu.co.uk. Yeah, would love to hear from anyone, be it dads that are looking for some advice. We have a WhatsApp group. They're welcome to join. In fact, I'll share the link with you and you can add it to the bit of the
Yeah,
podcast.
absolutely. Will do. Yeah.
And parents can ask us anything in that group. And yeah, more than happy to share some sort of discount code for your listeners as well, Rob.
Super. That's great, Charlie. Thank you so much. And yeah, good luck with it all. It sounds like a fascinating journey. Keep it up. And yeah, thanks for spending some time with us today. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you for having me on.
Take care.